Well, the Super Bowl has come and gone, and we all know the most important part of the game last night. Yes, it was the debut of the new scoreboard, and people immediately hated it. And I gotta say, giving it a few hours, looking at it this morning, I do think it is a little bit of a downgrade. Now, I'll give my review on the scoreboard. You can take a look. This is the new CBS scoreboard. If you don't know, the Super Bowl has been rotating on CBS, Fox, and NBC on a 3-year rotation, and every time one of those networks gets the Super Bowl, they debut their new scoreboard that they're going to be using for the next 3 years. So, like CBS presumably will be using this brand new scoreboard next regular season, the regular season after that, and the regular season after that. And just looking at it, the biggest issue and the biggest critique is the fonts of the abbreviation. Now, in the way the animations work, I do think it's decent. It kind of reminds me of an old school NBC scoreboard from like 2013, 2012. But the issue is the amount of space in between the score and the abbreviations. The abbreviation font looks very, very bad. It looks like just the standard simple font that you would use in like a high school scoreboard if you wanted to make one. Very low budget. In general, I think the other fonts are good, like for the yardage and the time. But the one other thing you're going to have to note is that during the season, teams are going to have records, and they're going to be putting the record in between the abbreviation for the team and the score. So there's going to be something that goes in between there. The vibrancy of it, the fact that they include logos, I guess it's fine. But in comparison to the other one, I mean, I think the other one is probably better, and I didn't even love the other one, honestly, but the other one is just a lot more condensed. I mean, you could argue, the one thing I'll say, you could argue that the records are too close to the score, makes it look a little bit weird, and maybe that's the thing they were trying to eliminate with this new one. But obviously, in terms of a Super Bowl presentation, the scoreboard should be scrunched in a little bit to really condense it and remove that dead space that they have in between the abbreviations and the score. So I don't know if it's just I'm a hater. I looked at it last night, and feels like the last 5 or 6 new scoreboards we've had, I've kind of not liked them, but that's just the reality of that. And then the OG, why not just go back to this one? I understand they'll say, well, you can't fit the team record in there, but this is just an amazing scoreboard, I'm sorry. This is like the one from 2013 to 2015, I believe. It's just so good. But yeah, that will presumably be CBS's scoreboard for the next 3 years. Again, that's not exactly how it's going to look, because when teams' records, they start playing games, say a team is 4-4, their record is going to go right in between the abbreviation and the score, and it's going to be spread out at least decently. So we'll see how that works out for CBS. But either way, I'm just going to react to the game, some different things I found. Yeah, so this is a pretty crazy thing. I forgot about this. Like the Chiefs have not had a legitimate number one receiver since Tyreek Hill left. I mean, they drafted Sky Moore in the second round. They drafted Rice. But in general, it is crazy how they lose Tyreek Hill and then they win back-to-back Super Bowls. And this year, I mean, the Chiefs were just going through the motions in the regular season. Not that the regular season doesn't matter, but I thought this was like Mahomes' worst regular season of his career, and they end up winning the Super Bowl. My annual play to the NCAA, if the Super Bowl can kick off at 6:30, why on earth does the men's basketball championship game not tip till 9:20? That's crazy if that's still true. You would think they would at least change that to 8:20 Eastern Standard Time. 9:20 is ridiculous. The other reason this is ridiculous is because college football actually changed their kickoff time for the national championship to 7:30 2 years ago. Now, both the college football and college basketball should have their championship games. College basketball, I'd be fine with it being, I guess you can't have it on Sunday because it would only be 1 day rest. But in general, 9:20 is just ridiculous, man. How can you at least not change? I mean, take advantage of the fact that basketball games are shorter than football games. At least change it to 8 o'clock or 8:30, something like that, so it'll tip off a little bit earlier. That is just ridiculous. NFL is really expanding international. And, I was asked some questions last night about When is it going to happen? When is the first Super Bowl in London? I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, but you can see the London games. You do have the Bears, the Vikings, and of course the Jaguars all playing in London, with the Jaguars being the only ones playing at Wembley. You also do have two at Tottenham Hotspur, the new stadium there that they always play at now. And then also Munich, Germany getting one. That will be the Carolina Panthers and somebody else. And then Brazil and their massive stadium. They get the Philadelphia Eagles on opening night. I believe that's a Friday night game. So the NFL will kick off on Thursday night with the Kansas City Chiefs hosting, and then Friday it will be the Eagles. That is pretty crazy there. And then also the NFL in 2025 says that Spain will host an international game. And look at this. This is Real Madrid's stadium that they just renovated the exterior. The thing looks like an upgraded version of MetLife going all the way around, doesn't it? I mean, it's pretty cool, and it is a retractable roof. But it is the European design where there's already a massive overhang even without the retractableness of it. Either way, that's where the NFL is going in 2025. And the question gets raised, will we ever reach a point where the NFL actually plans a Super Bowl in London? And how would the time difference work? Now, if you're comparing California to London, I believe it's an 8-hour difference. I'm guessing they would have to start the Super Bowl at around 8:30 London time. I don't know if you could start it at 9 o'clock local time, but they would definitely want to start it as late as possible in London. So when you're talking about like states like California, it's not going to be too early to where the Super Bowl is happening at 11 a.m. They would want it at least noon or 1 o'clock. Although, I mean, in terms of money, if it makes sense, they might actually try and do it. I do know the NFL does incentivize teams to get new stadiums by saying that they'll be able to host a Super Bowl. That's why I think Nashville is going to be getting a Super Bowl. That's why possibly Cleveland in the 2030s, if they build a dome, will be getting at least one Super Bowl. There's a big incentive around that. Also, Chicago is going to be getting a Super Bowl as well, possibly also Washington. I would imagine SoFi is going to continuously be in the rotation in LA. And also, we just had Allegiant hosting their first Super Bowl. They're going to be in the rotation, I'm sure, with it being in Las Vegas. But either way, when it comes to, I mean, people are going to start talking about Patrick Mahomes as the greatest quarterback ever. You look at his numbers. One of the interesting things to look at is that AV stat, approximate value. Whenever you have an approximate value above the amount of games you've played, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's easier for quarterbacks, but he's got it right now. This is just regular season, an AV of 109 in 96 career games. Mahomes, the rings are normally the hardest things, especially for the modern players, because they're always going to have the stats above, someone like Brady or even Peyton. Even with Peyton having that crazy 2013 season, just consistently, and this being Mahomes' worst season. I mean, 27 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. His efficiency wasn't very good, but at this point, over 200 touchdowns. I would caution people when talking about the greatest ever. Certainly having 3 rings already, though. 6-time Pro Bowler. It hasn't even updated, though. It still says 2-time Super Bowl champion. It'll be interesting to see where Mahomes finishes. I'm certainly not saying he's the GOAT yet because, you've got to prove it over a long, long period of time, but he's already going to have the stats compiled, you would think, considering he's not even 30 years old yet, and he already has over 200 passing touchdowns. The hardest thing is normally the rings, already having 3 of those. He could be on his way. And then this is a big change when it comes to the future Super Bowls. It is the TV rights. So in 2024, it will be Fox hosting the Super Bowl. Now, Fox hosted it last year, so they're going to be getting it kind of like 2 times in 3 years. Then NBC gets it in 2025. ABC, not CBS, gets it in 2026, which is an ESPN broadcast. 2027, it goes back to CBS, then to Fox, then back to NBC, then to ABC, back to CBS, back to Fox, back to NBC. So they're incorporating ESPN and their production into the Super Bowl, but ABC is not going to have the rights until 2026. So next year, it will actually be Fox and then NBC when it comes to the Super Bowl broadcast rights. Either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.